Well, hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. Aaron, Mary, and James here with special guest Lee Murray. And I'm really excited for this conversation. And for listeners who may be new, because I know you're out there, what we do in the Purposeful Marketing Podcast is we ask the why. We're all marketers, but we like big questions. And within those questions, we have great dialogue. We take ideas, we pull them apart. And within that conversation, I hope you find something impactful, truthful, something that really helps you understand your role as an everyday practitioner a little better. So that's what we're here to do today. I'm going to give Lee the space just to introduce himself, and then he's going to ask us a question on the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. We're going to roll from there. So take it away, Lee.
Thanks, Aaron. Really nice being here. Thanks for having me on. And Lee Murray, Harvard Murray Consulting is my company. I'm a business growth strategist. I help mid-market companies, executive teams, CEOs, CMOs, help them work through strategy and do it all for growth. That's what we're here for. So that's kind of what I do. I also have Exploring Growth podcast, which is how we all met. And kind of quasi LinkedIn relationships that we have going on these days. So thanks for having me.
Excellent. So I do have the topic, but I think, Lee, you were going to ask us a question to get it rolling. But essentially the topic is around this framing is marketing as important as we think it is? This is going to be a hard question for us marketers here. So Lee, did you want to take us away with a specific question?
Yes, I can answer your question. The answer is no, it's not. My personal take after, being a marketer and helping companies for many years, and, being friends with and colleagues with other marketers and being immersed in all LinkedIn, marketing stuff, the whole ecosystem. I think marketers love to make things super complicated. And, it's like we always come up with new acronyms, and it's really not that difficult. The thing that's difficult about marketing is that there are so many different types of marketing. There are so many different ways to market something in various different industries or niches or whatever. So that's where I think marketing as a banner is not, it's just not a good macro. We need to kind of divide the word marketing up into other macro terms that are kind of widely accepted. But is marketing necessary? The short answer is, I think not as much as we want to think it is. And the question that comes to mind is one that actually I was talking with someone on my podcast a couple episodes ago, and I posed this question. I'll pose to you guys. It is, can you grow a B2B company without social media? So meaning if, like, let's say you're starting out today, right? You're starting today, new company, fresh, and you're like, well, we got to set up a Facebook page, and we have to run Facebook ads, and we have to do all things Facebook. Whether you know what you're doing on Facebook or not, insert Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever. Or you decide, you know what? We're not doing that. We're just going to do everything else. Can you grow, and maybe to qualify that, could you grow at the same pace as a company that is using social media? The other way to look at it is you're already an existing company. You have social media accounts, which I think points to the answer, personally, the answer that I feel strongly about. I'll pose that question to you guys. I can give you the question a different way once we kind of get talking about it. But what do you guys think?
No, okay, I like this. So, Mary, I'm going to frame you up because you're a head of marketing. You have to make the case. Social media, is this going to help us grow? What are your thoughts?
I'll attack Lee's first question first. So the one, do I think a B2B company can grow without social media? For sure. James and I work with mid-market B2B industrial companies who haven't touched their social media accounts in 10 years, and they're still growing. Maybe it's not as slow as they could potentially grow, but they're growing. And they usually come to us because they have reached some kind of plateau. So maybe they were growing 10% year over year for 10 years, and now it's slowing to nothing. Do I think you can grow as fast? I don't think so, only because of the amount of time that people spend on social media. So as a channel, can it work? Yes. But are B2B companies using it the right way? Definitely not. Like most of them are like floundering on social media. And it's not because social media doesn't work. They're just not using the channel the right way.
Okay. And that, guys, because I think this is such a fun question. Like, is marketing as important as we think it is? And what it really comes down to me and with the social media question is, do we just not spend our time on the right things? And is it, again, I know how these consulting calls work. It's, I really want you to do social media. Here's how you do X, Y, and Z. That's what we're considering marketing. To me, that's not marketing. And that's why it is not as important as we think it is. Because what that equation is, okay, I got to get someone and persuade them to do something. It's not actually utilizing this channel and this function to help me grow and accelerate as quickly as possible, to Lee's question, right? We spend way too much time, to me, doing non-marketing activities. And that's why I love these kind of conversations, because it's really hard to get yourself out of that when you're living it, as a lot of us have worked in-house, right? Is, I need you to do this. It's like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I just think that's a fascinating question. James, do you just have any thoughts on some of the convo we've been having?
Nah, I'll pass on the trap question. I want to bite at Lee's follow-up question, though.
So follow-up question is just looking at it from a different angle. It's how much value does social media actually offer? And, we've kind of covered it. Mary, you and Aaron hit it on the head. It's, social media is just another tool. So are you you're utilizing that tool well? Do you know how to use it in your stack? Do you know how your audience is engaging on that channel? And if so, then, it can be very effective. But I think a lot of companies are marketing on social media, as they would say they're marketing on social media, or using it in various ways, even running ads and wasting a lot of money. And they would say it's not that effective. But I would say that they just aren't using it. And so like, also like, so I have a content agency, so I can speak from the agency side too. I see a lot of competitors that they really abuse their role as agency, overseeing social channels for their clients. And their clients are kind of asking the same thing that maybe some CEOs are asking of their marketing head is, well, where's the ROI? What's happening with our social media that's adding value to growth? And I think a lot of agencies just are chasing their tail in general, and they are, diluting any value that they might bring their clients through just the way that they operate. But I think from the agency side too, it's a bad thing, because it's improper use of a tool by people who maybe aren't trained well, or don't know how to use that tool. So I honestly think it's just a tool. The user and the tool, it goes with anything. If we're doing trade shows, it's the same way. Are we going to go set up a booth and accomplish nothing, or we're going to go and strategically, map the place? And I forgot, Mary, you used to be, or still are working in manufacturing. So you automatically were like, yeah, I could work without social media. Like, we've already done that.
Yep. Yeah. I love that you pointed out too the difference between like assigning someone to use a tool versus like knowing how to use it. And even worse is someone knows how to use the tool. So, to your point, Lee, you hire some like 25-year-old fresh out of college. Of course they know how to use social media. They grew up in social media, but they don't know your audience. They don't know your positioning. They don't know how you guys go to market normally. So they have no idea what your value prop is for your audience. So yeah, maybe you're putting a person who knows how to use the tools, but you're also not giving them the right way to use them. You're giving them a hammer to screw in a screw.
Well, it's like they also know how to drive a car, but they don't know how to win a race with a car.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
This is a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
I love these analogies, and one that I've used before, and you hear it all the time, but just because you have tools doesn't make you a carpenter. I think that's kind of what we're framing. I think, again, what is interesting with the question, like, what is important about marketing, or why is marketing not as important as it seems? I think part of the answer is because you have to have a POV on what marketing means to you. And I think where the challenge comes from is it a business POV, or is it a leadership POV on the marketing team? as we've talked about on this podcast, again, you should really have a mindset of like why you do the things you do. And if you don't, then you're just being asked to do things, or you're being asked by the business as a whole, like, is social media, is there ROI to it? Well, if you don't have a POV, you don't really have an answer. For me, again, at Proofpoint, I'm trying to build relationships at scale. Of course, social media is important to me, important to marketing and business as a whole, because that is the space where we can talk to our relationships every day. If you don't have that POV, it's like, wow, yeah, we're just talking in circles, and people are like, show me your dashboard. And you're like, oh man, it's not going to show you what you want. Does that resonate with you, Lee? Like what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. I'm kind of scrappy, so like I started a landscaping business when things weren't going very well in another business I was running. Like I just look at it like, what do I have to lose, And I think that, I think sometimes we, to your point, in the question, we think too highly of ourselves and what it is that we're doing. When a lot of times, not that you want to cut corners, but there's a lot of times you can do things much simpler. It doesn't have to be as complicated. We get degrees in all of these fields and like high thinking, highbrow about things, and we can give things lots of terms and whatever. But at the end of the day, I look at marketing as to serve the business objectives, of a company, in one form or another, whichever, piece of the marketing that's being handled. And, if I am running an agency, but we haven't got to the point really of building out a marketing team. But when we do, that's just, it's going to be pretty simple. Like I've been on the marketing side. So, those people are really going to probably hate their lives, because it's like, you're having to serve a marketer as CEO, but in the role of CEO. But if a CEO were also thinking like a marketer, I think you'd have a lot more success, because then the CEO is telling them, here are the expectations of what our marketing should do. And same thing for sales. Here are the expectations of what sales, the lift that sales has to bring at this point in time in the business. But I think marketing, especially sales, has to drive or influence, or, it depends on the stage of the company, I think, and the type of company. And there's a lot of factors, but it has to support or influence or drive metrics that are business metrics.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And maybe, Mary, you have some specific examples talking about that. Coming in as head of marketing, it's like you really need to be a part of that conversation. And if you are, then marketing becomes important. If you're not, if you're coming in after that fact, it's not. So yeah, I don't know if you have any just general thoughts, Mary.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It has to be the choice by leadership to bring on marketing. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I mean, that's what I did, like coming in as head of marketing, before I even made the decision, before I would even talk to anyone at My Customers. I was like, I had very deep talks with each person individually on the leadership team, and then the leadership team as a whole, to make sure they were invested in marketing and what marketing was going to do for the company. So to your point, Lee, you need to know what the business metrics are, what they're being measured on, what their goals are, and then assess whether you even think marketing can make a difference,
That's right.
So the interesting thing, like just coming from now being in the startup world compared to the B2B industrial world, is the business metrics are completely different. It's growth at all costs. But in the industrial world, it might just be, how can we have better conversations with our customers? Or we just want more people coming to our website, or we want some cool case studies. So the metrics and the goals can be so different depending on the company.
Yeah, that's Lee, did you have follow up with that?
No,
Otherwise, I'm gonna take it to another
100%
place.
agree.
Well,
Okay,
but Mary,
James.
like you're.
Oh wait,
But
James?
you're a young.
What's up?
You're young and female, and we hired you to quote unquote do marketing. You must be responsible for social media, right? Like you're all of a sudden like we're counting on you to like also handle the mantle of social media because you're younger than us and you're female.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, thank you for leading with, a tactic that you just can't even, like, you haven't even thought about any reason why you're doing this. It's like the ultimate like trap for like solo marketers.
Trap
it seems
culture.
It's just like, yeah, like I'm so thankful not to have fallen into that trap myself, but I know folks who have had to like answer that question. And it's just like, yeah, that's stupid. Like you're in a place with people that aren't thinking the right way. I was gonna ask Lee maybe like, what are other like comments like that or questions like that? If like, hey, you marketing person, do the social media for us is one like classic like tactics without strategy thing that people get asked to do. Like what's another like
Yeah. Well,
activity?
interestingly enough, I was having a conversation with an old friend of mine who's now running a magazine locally, and we're talking about the print world, which I don't know a lot about, but I just know that it's in a really interesting place. And we were having this question. He's kind of anxious about where things are going, and I would be too. We're trying to look at it from all angles, like, well, how do you approach your audience, and maybe the younger demographics on social, so you could be the publisher that you are in print on social. We're looking at all different angles and everything, and when it came down to it, I was like, you know what, you just got to burn it down. Just like get in there and say, what if we just shut this down and start it over? And the problem that he has ultimately at this point is that he is in a box, and it's hard for him to think outside of the baggage that comes with the box that he's in. So it's easy for me to sit across the coffee table and say, just burn it down. Like, it's like, you just like, cause I'm on the outside, I can see it all. And he's like, yeah, theoretically that makes sense, but I don't know how that would even work. Right. But I mean, the way that I think is, are we overthinking this? Right. If we're overthinking this, then maybe that's the problem. Maybe we just need to start out as simple as possible. Like, what's the baby step? What's the infant step? And then what's the next step? Right. And I think, James, to the question you're posing, is some of that's like all wrapped up in culture, though. Like, that can be tough if you're working for a company where the leadership is presupposing a bunch of sort of social norms that they've made up in their head, because you have a long way to go to educate them to what marketing really is and how it can have impact. That might be, maybe I need to work somewhere else. Which again, to that point, is like, burn it down. Like, what happens if you just burn your role down? Like, if you look at I can't think of her name off my top of my head, but I mean, I think Aaron and I were talking about this before. The lady who works at whatever company, she just wrote a book. It's the Diary of a CMO. Great book, right? I think she talks about this in there too. It's just this mentality of like, this is either going to fail with me making the wrong decision, or I'm going to make it fail by making decisions and, moving forward. So I don't know, that's how I think it's freeing to just say, are we overthinking this? Maybe we could just do this with one ad. Maybe we could just do this with no ads. Maybe we could do this with no social media at all. Maybe what if we just got on the phone and called somebody and asked them what they thought? Like, that's one phone call, right? That maybe turns into 10 phone calls, and then it's done. It's over. Now we have more money coming in and we can do more things. Like, the companies I work with, I think I've seen it happen more times than not. More times than not, I'll come in and they'll say, we're having problems with this. We want to figure out how to grow, yada, yada, yada. And I leave there telling them to do less. So.
Okay, I jive with this because I think we should think about this idea about burning it down. One of the thoughts I had with kind of what you've been talking about, Lee, is essentially with marketers and overthinking it, what we've done is we've branded so much of our job that the people we work with don't even know what we are supposed to do that is important. So it's, oh, you're supposed to create demand. You're supposed to capture demand. You're supposed to build affinity. You're supposed to create brand awareness. If I'm at a manufacturing company, kind of what we were all working at Gorilla 76, they're going to say, great, I have no idea what you're talking about and what you're supposed to do for marketing. And like, that's the issue with like, why is marketing not as important as we think it is because the people around us don't even understand what are the core responsibilities, what we should do.
we
a
live
great
in a
solution is to burn it
paradox.
down, right?
Aaron.
Yeah, we do live in
We
a
live in a
paradox. Yeah.
paradox because even
Yeah.
the company that was no brand, that put the products out as no brand, right? That was just like there's no brand, is a brand. And like there's no way you can get around marketing. It's just is there. So for like it's just a difficult world that we live in. Like we are a culmination of our collection of our own sins.
Totally. Yeah, we all have to live these sins here now in marketing. I think the answer to me is, again, with the POV. I do want to linger on that for our listeners because we'll use like a business POV, right? So Facebook's is their narrative is let's work fast and break stuff. Great. That's how they work, right? So when there's questions about why is this function doing that or this, it's because we work fast and we break stuff. For marketing, I think you should have the same thing. A personal POV for me is, how can I maximize learnings? It's not about should I know everything. It's about quickly learning what I don't know and if that matters to me. That's how I work in marketing. That's when people work with me, like they get that process, right? So if you don't have that, I think ways to get that is you can simplify, you can burn it down. We're talking through some of these. But I really think if you're an agency, if you're an individual marketer, if you're working in-house, you need to have a POV on why you're doing the things you do. Otherwise, leadership in the business is going to look at you and say, well, I really don't think you're as important as you really think you are. Mary, you have any thoughts on that?
Newsflash, they already think that.
They already think that, yeah.
We're the ones that have the trouble.
Tell it. Okay, Mary, I have a question for you. So again, coming in, like I've worked with you, so I know how you work, right? Did you establish that when you went to Met My Customers? Were you kind of like, this is what I think, this is how I'm going to work? Is that part of, again, not even your GTM strategy, but just like working with Mary for marketing?
Yeah, for sure. It was like, I think I established it not as clearly as you just said. Like I wasn't like, this is what I want to, how I want you to work with me. I was very clear in my go-to-market. Like I wanted to build a foundation built on positioning, targeting, messaging, segmentation, create content, distribute it, analyze, and iterate. So I was very clear about how I wanted to work within a marketing function. But as far as like communicating, I think I just did it naturally because it was a little bit easier for me, like based on my journey into the job, because I told them this is exactly what I wanted to do. And they were bought in before they hired me. So anytime they would bring an idea that didn't really fit in, I was like, that's not why you hired me, or that's not going to work this year. So it's like, it made it very easy to say no to certain like tactics that to our point that we're talking about, people think marketing should be doing or what they think marketing is.
Right. Okay, so James, question for you. You're a content director. When people work with you doing content, like, do you let them know, like, this is how I think about it? This is what I think good content is. This is how you should work with James?
Most of the time, there's not like that conversation like doesn't even come up. Like we at Gorilla, everything is very strategy led. Like by the time like I am really going to work, in terms of actually like producing content, we've already built the plan. We've already had so many conversations with them about like why we want to talk about the things we want to talk about. Why is this the message? Why is this message going to end up here? Like we've started with all of the foundational strategic stuff to the point that like, and some of that is stuff that I'm not even involved in, or I'm not involved directly with the client. Like I'm on the back end, like communicating with people, and I'm involved in decision making, but I don't even like see the client. And then all of a sudden I'm like talking to them about a particular subject, and there's so much buy-in because it's like, well, we led with what you guys want to achieve and talked about how that will work. So it's almost like it's just not a conversation I feel like I need to have with anyone, which is helpful because it's just not that interesting. Like I just think like, I don't expect, I don't ask every engineer I talk to, okay, like explain to me your entire point of view on your job. Like, and And I'm glad that I don't get asked that, every time I go set out to do something. It's like, but it's a question you have to earn your way out of answering by actually like giving a shit about like the ultimate goal, and not just about like task fulfillment or like ticking a box, or making yourself feel valuable. Like you just need to like set up a relationship with your company or your client or whatever, where you've aligned on what the value is. Like you already know, here's the goal. We've agreed exactly how we're going to achieve that. This is just me doing my bit right now. It's as simple and humble as that.
Okay, so two thoughts I want to linger on, then I'm going to throw it to you, Lee. James, I always appreciate you providing a counterbalance to what I just said, because I'm such a marketer. I'm like, I need to market the POV. What you brought up was really important to me, which is like your actions will help explain that. And again, I've worked with you. I know how you work, and I think people will understand that. And you don't necessarily need to ask James like what his POV on content is. What you did bring up, which is really important, is working for organizations that understand marketing's role. And I think maybe that's part of this question too, is too often marketers who are not in these organizations, they're doing tactics, they're not doing strategy. All of us here probably, we think marketing is part of the strategy, and that's why we think it's important. If you're doing tactics, that's probably why marketing's not as important as it is. What do you think about that, Lee? Is the answer we need to be more involved in strategy as marketers? Is that your thought?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, since I'm a strategist kind of by nature, that's really the way my DNA. I'm a hammer that's looking for a nail sometimes. So I'm a little bit skewed on that. But with that said, I would say that a lot of sort of practitioners or tacticians, if you want to highbrow it, they don't have context for strategy because they've never had good strategy. So they are doing a lot more work than they should be doing because they haven't thought through it both vertically and horizontally, is sort of a way to explain it. And that's what I think we see so much, is that sort of like sharpening the saw, take some time to take a step back, look at what you're doing. It's pretty straightforward type of, philosophy. And then when you do go back at it, come back at it in a new, improved way. But you have people that are just doing what they've always done, and their feet aren't being held to the fire, mainly because the people who need to hold their feet to the fire don't know how to hold their feet to the fire. So it's sort of like the blind leading the blind a little bit. So I think strategy is imperative because it gives you your direction. It actually gives you the roadmap. And you can go execute on it, I think, and fail, but you're going to learn a lot more and much quicker than you would by not having some kind of roadmap or plan. It's so much easier to communicate back up the pipeline on what you're doing and why it's working or not working. I mean, I think part of what we're talking about is just good leadership. Like if there's not good leadership kind of saying, hey, I don't really understand what we should be measuring, but I know we should be measuring something. So let's start with something. Like, what are we going to do, and how are we going to measure it, and sort of imputing that, leading the, giving the right instruction to a marketing leader who may not be up to speed yet. There's a lot of factors, but I think that when you don't have a strategy involved, you're just left to the channel or the platform or the tactic. God save us all, the tactic, because it's just, what's the latest thing that's happening on TikTok? Well, that's what we should be doing. Like, should we even be on TikTok? Should TikTok even be allowed? Should it even be legal? No one's asking those questions. I mean, there's some people, but they're not in marketing. It's like, are we asking of ourselves the right questions? How many clients, like we're talking B2B, how many clients do we need to sell this year? 2, 10, 20? I mean, there's not that many, because when you're B2B, it's typically higher ticket sales. How can we go get 10 clients for the rest of the year, like in the next 7 months or however many months are left? Well, you might not need to launch a big, huge Facebook ad campaign that's going to fail. Maybe we just need to go call like 40 people and get 10 people on the phone. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that businesses, they overstaff. They don't, the staff doesn't know what they're doing. They have lots of riffraff that goes along with it. I see it all the time. And, it's not, what I'm saying is simplifying it. It's not that simple, but a lot of times it kind of is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great stuff in there, and I'm going to kind of wrap us up. And then if you have any final questions, you can ask us. But I think if you're listening to this podcast today, it's what I want you to take out of it is essentially, it's hard to be a marketer, right? But what you can do is you don't want to get caught in that trap of, is marketing really as important as it really is? The way to get out of that trap is to take a step back, simplify. Maybe you got to burn down the house. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to kind of define what you do, because people don't understand what you should do. Maybe you should just lead by your actions, as James said. There's so many answers to this, but what the answer is not is continuing to just do the tactics, the hamster wheel of tactics, jumping to the next thing, just doing marketing because you got to do marketing. What you need to do is understand the strategy and then help others understand how marketing helps them. So, Lee, any final questions? This was a lovely topic. It really got me fired up. So
I thought that there was going to be a drinking game involved. You're drinking.
Yeah. That's what marketers should be doing.
So, I think most, they're all good. This has been great. It's been a lot of fun. I'd love to come back and hang with you guys some more and talk about other, opposing views on marketing.
Love it. Mary, did you have something?
No, I do want to have Lee back. We'll have him back in a month or something. We can do like hot takes on demand gen or something. Because Lee and I had some really good conversations on his podcast about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I would love that. So listeners, give us some feedback on this episode. Lee, where can people find you best?
harvardmurray.com. If you click on Exploring Growth at the top, that is my podcast. That's probably the easiest way to get involved in the newsletter. That's growing really fast these days, which is really cool. That comes out once a week. And then obviously the podcast is there. I think everyone except for James is on my podcast, which is kind of cool. LinkedIn is there, which, I'm not saying that you're not invited, James. I'm just saying, LinkedIn's cool. You can find me on there. Just look me up and I'd love to chat with you on there.
Excellent. So give Lee a follow. Again, for our show, best way to find us is DM us on LinkedIn. We are taking guests. In fact, we all found each other from LinkedIn DMs, and that's how you get on the show. This is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever they have podcasts. You can give it a listen. But I do want to leave us with the final thought that, again, marketing is hard, and that's why we're here, and that's why we have these conversations, because we want to help you. So thank you, listeners, and have a good one.